does not seem to be contributing as much as everyone else. Alex did the bare minimum for the first project and promised to contribute more for the second project. Although Alex did put in more effort in the second project, the work was not completed on time or in the correct format. So you and the others needed to step up at the last minute to complete this project. You're now about to begin the third and final class project, and you would like to talk with Alex about improving the quality of the work and submitting it to the team ahead of time. You're worried that Alex will get defensive when you suggest that the quality will be improved because Alex put in a lot of effort last time, and you are also afraid to tell that Alex will think you're being unreasonable if you suggest that the work be submitted ahead of time. But your grade in the class is important, and you need to talk with Alex. All right, can we have a volunteer to play Alex? All right, excellent. And a volunteer to play the manager, or not the manager, yes, Jim, fantastic.
So Alex, we got the assignment back, and we're a little bit concerned. We only got an 80% on it, and so when we started looking at this assignment, we found that a lot of the errors were in the sections that you completed. And I definitely understand that we're all here to learn, and I also really appreciate the improvement in effort and quality of work you did over the last assignment. But we're getting a little bit concerned that for this third assignment, we're going to end up with another 80%. I mean, we can't have that. Our tuition reimbursements depending on our grades. Joe is very concerned that if he doesn't get an A, he's going to not graduate with honors. So we want to find some ways to maybe improve our grade in this assignment. We were discussing some options, and we really got it as a team member. What we were wondering is if you would be on board with maybe completing your work a little bit earlier, getting it to us a day or two ahead of time, maybe a week ahead of time, and then this way we can go over it together as a group. Maybe help you understand anything that you're not sure about. We don't want you to feel like you're going about this on your own, and that the pressure is really on you to struggle through it and get it 100% correct. I mean, we're here to help you. We're a team. We just want to make sure that we get an A in this third and final project.
Well, it's not like the only things that were wrong with the paper were wrong in my section.
We agree.
So why are you singling me out here?
Well, so we've gone through and we've looked through all the things that are wrong. I know that there was a pretty big error in my section, and it's because I submitted the wrong file. I submitted an older version, so I'm going to take steps to correct this. We know that in Joe's section, he misspelled some very important words, like unacceptable for an MBA level class. So we figured we were going to pass the paper around to everybody to be proofread ahead of time. And so part of this effort to get the work in earlier and get a better grade is going to be making sure that other team members get to review everything ahead of time, so that if there are any questions, any problems, we can bring them to light, we can work them out together. And we just want to know that you're on board with getting your work in ahead of time so that we can file it earlier, get a head start, and ensure that we all get the grade that we really deserve for this class.
I think it's perfectly fine if the rest of you want to do a bunch of extra work and proofread. I get a B, I move on, I keep on going. I put in the effort that I think is acceptable. Why don't the rest of you do your work early and make sure your parts are fine? I'll turn it 80%, and mathematically with four of us, right, you guys ought to get the 92 you want. What's the big deal?
The problem is that we're all on the hairy edge, and if we repeat the performance on this last paper, even with the improvements, we're still not going to get the grades that we need. I mean, are you a little bit concerned that maybe some of your other team members might not get their full tuition reimbursement? I mean, there's a financial impact.
There might be you, but I got a life. I mean, I'm trying to make it through this course the best I can. How you pay for it or don't pay for it is sort of your problem.
I understand that. That's valid. That's why we want to give you an opportunity to let us help you out, maybe to ease that burden a little bit so that you don't need to sit.
I'm sure I'm good. I paid the professor several $1,000s so he could instruct me. I really think that it's fine. I mean, I turned in my stuff. So if you want me to turn it in a day or so early, and somebody's got a concrete plan to actually give feedback in time that I can do something with it within my life, great. If I'm gonna turn the stuff in, you're gonna give me corrections at 6 o'clock on Sunday, I can't do anything with that. I have other things happening.
So that's why I think it's very important for you to turn it in earlier, because we can give you more time to correct those
So
problems, or
are we all finishing our parts earlier to put it together?
we
or
want to
not
compile,
finishing?
we want to compile the report a week early. And you getting us your part of this assignment a week early is the only way we're going to be able to do that. If you were to give it to us a day earlier, we're still going to be far behind our deadline. It's going to create more stress for everybody. And if there's any problems that come up, now we're all under the gun to fix it. So I think this is the best solution for everybody. It's in your best interest. You're going to get the grade that you actually deserve. It's going to ensure that everyone gets their full tuition reimbursement. It's going to ensure that Joe gets to graduate with honors, and none of us are going to be stressed at the last minute trying to compile this paper.
It sounds like a lot of problems for you guys, not necessarily. So if what you're saying is this time we're gonna complete the first draft of the paper a week before it's due, so that we can go through and make corrections, I'm fine with that, right, I'm part of the team, but if you say you're gonna spend a lot of time critiquing my individual work, then it sounds like we should fix that then.
We want to we want to critique each other's work. And so it's almost not fair for us to be critiquing the first 3 sections if the 4th section is going to get submitted at the last minute. So allow us to help you, to ease that burden, to take this weight off your shoulders and get the grade that we truly deserve. Help me help you.
I hear you, why don't we put together a plan and talk about this with the rest of the group? And then maybe if the group has another side meeting, we should discuss whether or not I'm pulling my own weight, I could be in that conversation.
We don't even need to have that meeting. What we'll do is we'll put together an email, and it'll basically outline a timeline of when everyone's going to get their schedule. Are you going to stop?
I think both of you
Yeah.
can.
Okay. Oh, excellent.
Keep them out of your finance groups.
Well, there was one reason I wanted to let it go a little longer is there's one thing that happened right at the end. Did you hear what he brought up about the side meeting with the others? So that may have been the real thing that he was annoyed at. And if Jim could have addressed that, say, oh, I understand, that may have opened him up a little bit. Maybe not, because he was just intent on being such a jerk. and he did it well. All right, but I think
Well, the
Jim-
lazy guy's being lazy on purpose. Because we've all had that guy in our group.
Uh-huh.
We just don't do the work because they don't have to. The other 3 people are going to turn it in because they need to pass. Don't do anything.
All right, so David played that role really well. How did Jim do in approaching that person? Truly.
One thing I noticed is I think he did a great job. However, it's just starting right off the bat saying we feel, it made him feel singled out. And it implied that they had a meeting without him, discussed about him, and now he's the messenger from the team. And anyone would be defensive at that point. And so just not say we and just be like, hey, I want to talk about something, and I want to say this to the team as well. We're all trying to get deadlines set, have responsibilities set, so we're not, starting at the last minute and we're lost.
Yeah.
Instead of saying we feel.
Yeah. And maybe David even gave us that clue at the end. We might even say that Jim's well-reasoned argument, approach, and logic, and it was very well-reasoned, great approach, seemed to take a lot of effort, was completely derailed by one statement. Other thoughts? Al?
I thought it was a great strategy, but one piece that I would have added in is to get to the underlying cause and see if you can find out why the work was late, and was there any problems, empathize, and say you've been there before, and see if you can get to the bottom of it.
Great. Nick?
I've dealt with people like that at both work and school. And I find the best way to do, and I think he was even hinting to it like he wanted it, is what's the problem? What's the plan? What are you asking me? And I think as the person approaching him, I would have said like, look, last time we had a paper, it was 2 weeks early. What do we got to do? You have my commitment to support. What do we got to do to get it in a week early? And then you kind of give them the, can we get your commitment to just get it in a week earlier? I think when he started going in about, you have to care about everyone in the group, it made him even shut down like,
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
I'm jealous that
So
I work for a small company and they don't give me money for school, like all the J&J folks. Your tuition
I
reimbursement.
mean, I think like, what's the action, what's the plan? What do you need from me? You needed 2 weeks, you needed 1 week, you needed 3 days, and just say, here's what we need, here's the plan, what do we gotta do to get you to get in?
These are great comments. And so we're thinking about getting at the root thing that might be making him mad. And Emily brought this up earlier, the root thing that was driving her belief about Trump or the ethics of that. So if we can't address that, then we have little hope of addressing the problem. And the problem can be exacerbated by the fact that that is unknown. We have all sorts of impact that creates in a difficult conflict type of environment. Shruti.
And also like sort of make it seem that the expectation are the same for everybody. It's not just you who have to turn it in 1 week earlier. And he said, you addressed that afterwards, like we're all doing our part, but say that beforehand before you got the message, you know? Like this is a plan we all are trying to agree to do. You know, you're not the only one who should submit a week earlier and you're not the only one that has all these things in their sections or whatever it is.
I think he said that though. I think
He
you
did.
addressed both
He
those
did.
points.
He did, but Shruti saying if he could have addressed that before you got angry.
I did it at the very end, like, cause I guess I didn't like anticipate how you were going to react.
Yeah, and this is tough, all right? People get their feathers ruffled for any number of reasons. And we need to be able to respect, understand, and address that if we're gonna solve this problem from a business standpoint. Saeed?
It's a common question. It's about the tone. Like the approach was more almost like he was a supervisor's boss talking to him. And, you know, I know that gives you authority to say something, but there's also the whole other approach. Even starting with a question allows you to have that more like, we're friends and let's have just a conversation. So like if he started with, hey man, did you see the grade that came back? Like, you know, I was surprised how low we got or something. And then make it so that we're just chatting. So I guess my question comes is like, when do you want to come with that more professional tone and like, I'm talking to you and I'm talking with you?
Okay, all right, so let's discuss that in a minute. First, let me ask you, Dave, how did that feel when you were approached? Were you approached like you were being talked down to, and did that affect the way you responded?
Well, after a couple of sessions, it sort of felt like you picked the short straw in the group and so you were forced to have the conversation with me. Because it's you're right, it's an uncomfortable topic, right? So the rest of us feel you're not pulling your weight. And so I have to assume I know I turned in the paper late, that I didn't meet the commitments and my sections were wrong, right? So I get why you're having the conversation, I don't care about why I turned it in like that, right?
Okay.
So I understood, so I thought he was just nervous about having the conversation. I didn't feel like this was sort of, I could see how you could say that he's sort of like a supervisor, subordinate kind of tone, but I didn't really see that. I just thought it was the politest way you could say, stop being lazy.
Okay.
You're
So,
talking to all
all
of
right.
us.
So some people saw it as kind of a talking down to type of situation. This is definitely something we want to be aware of. It turns out in this situation, David didn't feel that way. It's fluid. Sometimes it can produce negative results. Sometimes it's fine. Or I guess I might not even say it was fine in this case. There was something wrong with the way he was approached. Jim.
So not to count, I think it's like a good thing. I guess I'm in the mindset of having these sorts of discussions as like a supervisor subordinate kind of thing. But I get very put off by someone who would approach me trying to be very friendly, because my immediate thought is, you want something? We're not friends. What are you doing and why are you talking to me? It's like if I go to like a car dealer, right? And the guy walks up and he's like, oh, hey, what's going on? Like, I know your only intention is to sell me a car. So don't try and be my friend. Answer my questions, give me the test drive, and then we'll talk about a price. Like, I don't need a friend out of this endeavor. I need a car. And so the same thing with this situation is like, I don't need another friend. I've got 2 other group members who I'm good with. I need a passing grade, or I need the A, or whatever it is. So it's almost like it was difficult for me to not just take a very direct approach and just try and get what I need, because like, we're driving a bus and you can either get on or you can find another group. Like, I don't really know what else to do. Right? Like,
All right, good points, and that makes me think of something that we've seen a number of times, is that everyone is different. And everyone has a different preferred style. One thing is going to upset someone, one thing is not. Or the same thing with a different person is not. So we need to be careful about how we approach. We need to read that person, just like we did when we were doing the status card game. Read that person as an individual. Not go into an emotional hijack situation yourself just because your first strategy didn't work. And think about how you can come at that person with a different strategy. All
You're
right.
gonna see him twice more before the project's due, so.
You're going to have 2 more shots at it. All right, Emily?
I was thinking, I would approach each of these scenarios with the same kind of formula or something. Like, all these scenarios are about somebody else says something about the person you need to talk to. And that's why you have to bring them in to have this conversation. So, every single one of these, I would say, start out kind of in a chatty way, address the problem saying, hey, I noticed this. And then ask them, did you notice this? Or what do you what do you think might be going on here? And then let them come up with the problem themselves, and then automatically you guys are working as a team, you're finding the solutions together, and you can steer them towards like what you want out of them in the end. But any other way, like telling them the problem, they have to be defensive at that. Telling them that somebody else told you about the problem, they have to be doubly defensive about that. So, yeah, that's how I think about it.
I think that's fantastic. If you can approach that in a sincere way, I actually want your input. I want you to tell me how sales in your district are going. I don't have some agenda where I'm going to say something else. I'm just waiting for you to answer. I think if you can approach those with questions in a sincere way like Emily describes, fantastic. Al?
So I agree completely. I mean, we're talking about having difficult conversations and what's the way to make it less difficult and less painful. So it's easy if it's a superior talking to a subordinate. You don't have to kind of sugarcoat things. But if it's peers, and if you can diffuse the situation first or have them come up with the solution, I think it just makes the difficult conversation a little easier to have.
Great points. Great points. All right. Nick.
I was just gonna mention one point, I think in, I think in a business setting, in a scenario where you have kind of a third-party mediator, I think there's gonna be problems people can solve kind of one-on-one, and then there's gonna be problems that have to be solved just because of HR guidelines and things that you don't wanna put yourself at risk by saying or doing something that might be a violation. So you need to have that third party involved. So I think there's some of these issues that we touched on today may not be certain issues that you can walk up to someone and say, hey, Jamie, what's going on? You
Okay,
know?
all good points. And there's so many different moving parts to this. And I think we discussed a lot of them. We saw a lot of different conversation, different conflict type situations in action. And I hope you got some good practice working on your emotional intelligence skills and something that at least resembled a real life situation. But to Nick's point, of course, there's going to be a lot more to real life situations. But I still think we can take value away from when people get upset, when people get defensive, and what causes that. How can we get at the root issue? How can we adjust? How can we be resilient? Even though our first strategy didn't work as effective as we thought it was in our head, how can we be resilient and go with another strategy even though that one didn't work out? So let's wrap this up and let me explain a couple of things. One, I believe you have an assignment due next week, which is to write an essay in the thesis subheading format about emotional intelligence, explaining, I believe, why emotional intelligence is important in a business setting and how it can be. So we have their. I got my sentence. I want to just mention this for a second because it's a good chance to. Do you have that? Emotional intelligence summary. Oh yeah, it's the last page. All right, sorry. And it's due the 20. Is that 2 weeks from today? Okay, all right, anyway, I'll still explain it now because we've just done the emotional intelligence stuff. So one thing I love about the thesis subheading format is it allows us to take various subjects, various complicated subjects, and condense it into a clear thesis. The thesis, the subheadings, everything can guide your reader into what is the specific, actionable, what is the main point you want to make about this subject. And I think as business students, we always want to do that. We always want to take the clear, actionable conclusions and think about how we can express them as concisely as possible. And I think that is doubly important when we deal with a abstract issue like emotional intelligence. So there's emotions, social management, there's a lot of things that we're not used to quantifying. Let me put it that way. So what I've asked you to do in this is just think about how you can quantify that. How can you reflect on why this is useful for individuals who need to communicate effectively in a business environment? Just use the subheading format. Think about the one thesis you want to say. Think about the subheadings you might put that under. You might say there are 3 different ways this is useful in a business environment. You might say there are 3 different components to emotional intelligence, how all those are useful in a business environment. And just use that same format. I graded everyone's written essay. If you did not get a 10 out of 10, please look at those comments carefully. I've tried to guide you on where I think it would be more effective in terms of using the actual format into making your point clearly. And I mentioned last time that this essay lends itself to a certain clarity that makes it easier on your audience. So if I gave you a 10 out of 10, I spent maybe 30 seconds or a minute looking at your essay saying, okay, boom, got all the points, understand it right away. If I didn't give you a 10 out of 10, I spent maybe 20, 30, 40 minutes trying to figure out, okay, where did this get a little bit different, and how can I explain to you, the student, how to express it with more clarity. And I hope that was helpful, so please read those comments if I gave them to you, and ask me questions if you have questions. You can ask me after class, or you can email me, or call me, whatever works for you. But I've asked you to do the exact same format for this emotional intelligence summary. Taking this abstract thing and condensing it down to something clear, specific, valuable. Any questions just on the emotional intelligence summary essay stuff? Yes, Drew.
There are lengths that
Less than 1 page for sure. 1 page, yeah. And don't feel the need to go all the way up to 1 page. If you feel you can do it in 2/3 of a page, that's fine. Any other questions? All right, great. So for the next class, next week, we're going to do on-camera stuff. And I think everyone has a role, except there are just 2 details. One, if maybe Saeed, do you have your laptop with you? And Ricky, maybe we can connect, 3 of us can connect on Skype for just like 5 minutes, and we'll get that out of the way. And then I think in terms of roles, Al and Emily, can you 2 maybe get together and come up with an interview topic, and one of you be the interviewer and the other be the interviewee, and do that assignment? Does that work for you 2? Okay. All right. If you want to brainstorm with me for a couple minutes after class, we can do that. And if you feel like that's not the right assignment for you, we can think of something else. I think that's it. I'll see you next week for on-camera stuff. Thanks for your work tonight.
No problem. Thank you.
See you next week, Ricky.
Next week I'm not going to be here.
Oh, no.
No, that's why I'm trying to do this Skype thing.
Yes. Who's your partner is Yes, you and Evan should talk about the interview you're going to do. I should give them some questions.
And so that's the point, is to explain it if they can't see it.
Just with graphic.
You gotta explain, cause I looked at the thing. You have to, like, read about what it is
Nick, did you
and how you explain it
I get it.
if they can't see you. And you're just in front of it.
Williams, 212. Yeah, I sent you a request, so you should be able to, unable to reach. Okay, so you don't have your computer with you, so just.
No, I don't have my computer, but I'll do it from home anyway.
Okay, yeah, call me. Like, try to call me. I'll see if there's a missed call and I'll be able to just. Okay, perfect. Excellent.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Not sure how that went. Marilyn, do you have a quick question?
Well, my question was on the graph.
Yeah.
You're assuming they can't see it, and they're just looking at the graph, or?
Good question. So they will see you, they'll see your faces on Skype, and they will have a picture of the graph.
Okay, so it's kind of both, but not like.
You can hold up the graph.
Okay.
Like this if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, you can like put it in front of the camera.
Okay.
I don't know if I recommend that strategy,
Right.
but you can.
They're just looking at it.
Actually, why don't you do the graph exercise? Would you mind a third partner to help you with the graph?
And his question was, is it a group?
Yes. Why don't you three work together on the graph exercise? So you're going to come up with a method for explaining this graph, and you're going to take turns presenting, or however you want to do it. And yes, okay. So you're good. You're good.
Explain.
Yeah, just
Forward.
the very first
It's still like straightforward, but in the question format, and the other one's on
Video
wishy-washy.
or wishy-washy?
Yeah, being around that.
No, yeah, that's the only one that's going on. You started marketing more hits? Oh.
So what's your Skype name?
Yeah. No.
There was 4th of July, but I didn't do it.
I went to a gym now.
Is this thing off?
Probably.
No, it's still recording. You got my giant head blocking your camera. And it's probably recording. Can I just?
Yeah, press this.
You can